Okay, so first things first, I fucking love horror movies. I annihilate that shit for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But if there's one thing about horror that made it one of the most influential genres of cinema, it's the slasher side of things. The slasher genre is what most people would think of when it comes to mentioning horror as a genre of film, when it is in fact a mere subgenre of horror. This common misconception that every horror movie is a slasher has been brought on due to the sudden popularity of the genre in the late 70s, also known as the Golden Age, spurred on by John Carpenter's Halloween, aka the one with 3 separate timelines and an upcoming movie that's gonna fuck it all up. Anyways. Slashers, like any movie genre, carries tropes that guarantees success of a product, whether it is immense gore, a masked killer, or an underdog heroine. The typical heroine in slasher films, also known as the survivor girl, is still debated today on whether it damages or empowers women within the medium of horror. Now, there is a certain, minority of which shares whispers of sexism and even misogynism within the genre, to which I have to argue, shut the fuck up! Slashers actually empower women, and I'm sitting here trying not to screw up reading this script to tell you the reasons why. First things first, what is a survivor girl? The survivor is usually a young female character escaping a threat, and by young female, the age range of these characters would be 16 to mid-20s. These characters would usually be pale or white-skinned and have an innocent exterior to represent the face of purity. Of course, the common connection between all these characters is that they're usually virgins, as well as being completely introverted, people who are inward-looking, shy, and commonly reticent, compared to their friendly side characters who are usually more outgoing and open to erotic relationships. The classic example of this character would be Laurie Strode from the Halloween franchise, my favorite. She is a bookworm surrounded by extroverted personalities who love all kinds of mischief. These were Annie and Linda. Pretty sure one of them was a pothead. Survivor girls were the tick to the talk of female victims in horror movies, who mostly appeared in the early 1930s, starting with Dracula and various other older monster flicks back when they were the popular horror subgenre. Like, sorry, but y'all have been replaced. There's no beating around the bush, no one finds you guys cool anymore. But moving on, this was when the focus was mainly on man versus monster, rather than the common slashers woman versus man. Arguably the most influential and fucking kick-ass film to bring the wave of change and open the doors to these unlikely heroes was the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Texas Chainsaw Massacre's overall narrative is quite simplistic. Teenage stock characters with barely any personality stand in an old relative's house to pay respects for their grandparents' grave, and of course it all goes horribly wrong when they come across a deranged hitchhiker and his malformed hillbilly family. However, in this film, something is different. The female character actually does something! I mean, she escapes. Safe to say, this was revolutionary. It became a cult success shortly after its release, and it was released in 1974, during the full reign of second-wave feminism, where world-renowned feminists, such as Gloria Steinem, created such quotes as, "A woman needs a man like a fish needs a bicycle." It was an era of change, an era of embracing sexuality, getting women into workspaces, and drew attention to violence against women, especially in media. And because of that, Texas Chainsaw Massacre was heavily criticized at the time for being explicitly exploitative. Fuck. You try and say that, I fucking dare you.
Explicitly exploitative.
You think you're smart, don't ya? Little did they know, this was the film that not only destroyed the concepts of female characters as victims, but opened the doors to make female characters in horror films the heroines. Thus, the age of the survivor girl began. The survivor girl empowers women because the survivors before the threat are, well, underdogs. unexpected heroes, therefore making them easier to root for. Of course, a strong, burly man is expected to win a fight against a monster. However, with a woman, it is clearly less expected, especially from a teenaged, nervous, unconfident girl. That's why it allows for a good setup and conclusion when the girl triumphs against the foe. The characters themselves not only grow stronger as a person, but also reveals to the audience her transition from a girl to a woman. Thing is, horror media preys on the unexpected, specifically being the possibility of a teenage girl winning a fight against a ruthless murderer. Seeing this trope was pretty cool from Halloween. Yeah, that was nice. Friday the 13th Part 2? Oh, classic. Prom night? We're getting there. It was pretty neat until it was repeated so much that it wasn't even beating a dead horse anymore. It was beating the maggots that were also dead, then the vultures that swooped in for the feed who were instead met by the baseball bat of a crazed madman, soon visited by some religious cult, of which had erected a statue to worship that guy who beated the horse until he himself became the result of satire and fucking scream! I fucking love you, Wes Craven. Anyways, moving on. If the survivor girl is deeply feminine, then it is suffice to say that the mask killer is incredibly masculine, a patriarchal figure that must be defeated in order for the survivor girl to metamorphosize. The mask killer is only referenced as such because, come on. It's in the fucking name. Jason Voorhees had his hockey mask, Leatherface had a mask made of skins, Michael Myers had his Halloween mask thing, and Freddy Krueger was fucking deformed. The masks were a mere trend of the Golden Age, as mentioned earlier. Masks are an easy way to craft an air of mystery about the character, and masks are scary in the fact that they hide true identities, cover emotions, and leave only a cold exterior to interact with. It is debatably the most important aspect of a horror movie villain, since it makes them look very unpredictable. Honestly, masked slasher villains seem to ignore the fact that their peripheral is fucking obstructive constantly, because with the dumb masks they have to wear to look cool to the masses. Yeah, just try and get to the fucking car. Just do it. Make my day. Oh no, the killer's there! What do you frickin' do? Killers also hid their faces due to a previous event resulting in disfigurement. It's a way for directors to not only show the villains as merciless killers, but also as victims of society. Not only should you fear them, it is clear that there's an element of pity for such characters as well. Now, to go into how the masked killer is masculine, they are almost always played by men. One of the only exceptions to the masked killer trope is Alice from Alice, Sweet Alice. They are inhumanly strong, often slow-moving, and wield a phallic weapon. Using Halloween as an example, Myers' weapon is a knife.
I'm an 80s knife villain. You can come at me with your gun, but you're gonna have to handle this at some point.
Knives are phallic in the way that they penetrate the skin, going deeper with each attempted stab. In some ways, slasher films portray murders as if they were rapes, arguably the ultimate crime against a woman, and the ultimate way of gaining dominance over a victim. Thus, slashers are the true genre to empower women, as they often always feature a survivor girl defeating the masked killer. In other words, defeating the patriarchy keeping them down. I want to kill myself for writing that line. Okay, allowing them to grow into a better person than they were before. Speaking of survivor girls and masked killers, the battle of the sexes is a key part in slasher films. The main character often reflects the tender sensitivity and empathy seen in femininity. The masked killer reflects the man of few words, strong determination seen in masculinity. It is when these two brawl, they play an intense game of predator and prey in the third act, often switching roles towards the end of the film when the female triumphs over evil. Does Alien count? I mean, Ripley's a survivor girl. The chest bursters are kind of phallic. Then again, the face huggers are yonic. Does the xenomorph even have a gender? Do we refer to them with they-them pronouns? Zay and Zir, maybe? I don't fucking know. It is a typical trope, often extremified in modern 2000s horror, that the survivor must always have some element of clothing torn off during the chase. Whether a sleeve is cut by sharp branches, a shirt torn off while escaping the clutches of the cold killer, it is not easy to ignore the sudden nudity of what was once the symbol of purity, now defiled or wounded. In the modern horror era, it is extremely common to see directors use this trope as an excuse to sexualize their characters. Well, it's more like sexualize their actors. An example being the Friday the 13th remake. Hoo boy. It isn't really a Friday the 13th remake, though. It's technically a remake for Friday the 13th Part 3. He doesn't get the mask until Part 3, yet they call it fucking Friday the 13th. We don't even see the mother! She's supposed to be the killer in Friday the 13th. And is that cunt from Supernatural? The fuck is this? Sorry for mentioning it, guys. During the Golden Age, the tearing of clothing was used for a particular purpose, that being to show vulnerability, to reveal a slight chance that the heroine might not make it. This is an important aspect of slasher films, as it keeps audiences invested and stuck on the ends of their seats. It shows that she is not invincible, and that she does not carry plot armor. You know, that trope in movies where main characters can't be hurt and will always win regardless of the stupid situation they got into. Jones survived a fucking atomic nuclear blast inside a lead-lined fridge. Are you even serious with me right now? Vulnerability helps the cause to empower women as it humanizes the survivor and solidifies her mortality, which makes the battle of the sexes more engaging and thrilling, compared to doing the latter where the survivor was invincible rather than at a disadvantage. Considerably, slasher movies have once empowered women. However, the genre has certainly fallen from grace over time, as time kills a genre, and not all genres are timeless. Not like there are any Western movies or pirate movies anymore, other than one particular franchise that refuses to die in the depths of Davy Jones's locker. This can be seen in many franchise sequels and remakes within the horror medium, where they over-exacerbate the use of tropes mostly due to lack of creativity. I mean, come on, it's been over 30 years, you're bound to run out of ideas at some point. Excessive gore, lazy stock characters, and over-sexualized survivor girl with a stale, silent killer to boot. This was the formula that worked, as it once had a purpose, to serve as a cautionary tale towards teenagers, the dangers of sex, alcohol, and drugs. A purpose certainly long forgotten about. In conclusion, slashers generally empower women by challenging our ideas of what a woman is. People are generally taught that men are physically stronger than women, and although that may be true, we are not taught that because of this, women always lose in the battle of the sexes. Audiences can forget about that, indulging themselves on focusing on the survivor girl's vulnerability, rooting for her to win, and for the killer to lose. Slasher films are not trying to portray women as good and men as evil. Slasher films act as a way to say that men were once ruthless in primal society. In the context of slashers, the mass killer murders friends, family, people of the neighborhood, and not even the justice system can catch them on their own. The survivor girl steps up to the plate by chance, challenging the villain and slowly taking back everything he took away by defeating or killing, or both, the murderer in an act of karmic justice. This is not taking away from man, but adding another step for women in terms of reaching equality. That is slasher's influence on society and how the genre empowers women. Hopefully you enjoyed this video and not cringed too hard at the whole girls rock narrative of slashers and all of that, I just thought I'd make this video to argue that not all slasher films are misogynistic, and anyone who says that they are have severely misread the director's choices. But then again, this is just my personal opinion. This is Femur Dream, and hopefully you can join me for an autopsy some other time. See ya!
I'm an 80s knife villain. You can come at me with your gun, but you're gonna have to handle this at some point. Ha! Ta! Try this on for size. You got a gun, dodging your bullets, and then I get you with the knife. Ah! Come here, John. Come on, John. Come on, John.